Hi, my name is Andy, and the reason I'm ineligible for funding is because I'm part of the leadership of Infuse and I'm on the board, and that would just be wrong and actually illegal. So I'm going to tell you about an idea that I have. You'll learn how you can follow along with it, and I'm just excited to get to share it and have the opportunity to tell you about it. The simple thing that I'm doing is I am going on a road trip this summer. Wow, what an idea. Now you could join Infuse and plan your next road trip, right? Wouldn't that be great? But I have a special road trip planned this summer. But the difference with my road trip is it's going to end up being a story, and the trip is called 2,000 Miles to Wrigley on a quest to discover friendship lost. Wrigley being Wrigley Field, the iconic home of the Chicago Cubs, who maybe the new pope is a fan of. There's a lot of hot debate around Chicago circles as to whether he is a Cubs fan or a White Sox fan. I'm going with Cubs fan because we need all the help we can get. But Wrigley Field, the home of the Chicago Cubs, and I will be driving a 1971 Volkswagen to Wrigley Field from Tucson, hopefully. And there are many reasons for the hopefully, including hopefully it makes it, because that's not a guarantee. The instigating event that leads to this is that my best friend, Sam, died in a tragic accident along with his fiance on the way to their wedding 18 and a half years ago. And so, actually almost 19 years. And so Samuel was just a special guy. He and his wife were kind of the people that were on their way to big things. So as you can see, this was in the news. This is internet news back in the day. His fiance, Valerie, was actually a track athlete. There was high hopes for her. She was on a scholarship at Colorado State. And then if you saw another one of the headlines, it would have said, hard-edged musician and fiance. So depending on the periodical, they focused on one of them or the other. But Sam was an excellent musician, and Valerie was a track star. And they were really excited about life, and they were headed here to Tucson to get married at the church where Sam grew up. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my friend. So this is seventh grade when I met Sam. You can see me up here. I've got a smirk on my face. That's kind of my persona. And then you can see him in the middle, just looking like a goofball with a what he would call a feel me shirt on. So that was silk. Nobody in our school was wearing silk at this time in history. And he has it combed down, but he had a mullet. And the way that I met him was another friend named Eric invited him to play basketball with us the year before. And he showed up with his mullet. And he was short, and he had the most stretched out socks I'd ever seen on a human being. They looked like, they'd been wrapped around tree trunks to stretch, and then he wore them. And he tied his shoes as tight as humanly possible. And I did not understand any of this. I thought he was a strange kid. And then he made every shot he took on the basketball court, and that bothered me very, very much. So, because I wanted to be the best, obviously. The next day, he said, "Why do you go to aftercare?" And I went to this thing at school, and I was like, "Because my mom works." And he said, "That's dumb." And I said, "Thanks a lot, dude. My mom has a job. Thanks for bringing it up." And he goes, "No, that's dumb because you could come over to my house." I was like, "Oh, okay." I went over to his house the next day. Since then, Sam Zawada was my best friend. So his family drove only 1971 Volkswagens. They had three. This is his dad, Bob, rebuilding the engine with Sam at some point. This was a common occurrence, 3 cars. Bob kept 2 engines in the inner sanctum, which is his name for his shed. So he had always had 2 spare engines on him, and they were always working on the Volkswagens. They were from Chicago, big Cubs fans. You can't see this picture at all, but that's Sam at a game in 2002 at the home opener wearing this shirt. So not this exact one, but he had this. He told me to get this shirt because it was the best shirt. Is the only shirt worth buying, is what he said. So that's Sam, and he and I became very close. We were the kind of friends that could just pick up the phone, talk whenever, talk about anything, and yeah, it was awesome. The idea is that there are some friends. It's not just me. He was like the friend that brought friends together. He had a lot of friends, and I was going to be the best man in the wedding. And we had all the stuff planned, and then what happened is that the funeral ended up being held in the church the weekend of the wedding because everybody was in town. Since that day, a number of his friends and I did not know how to process this story. We lost touch, and we just didn't stay close afterward. We didn't know what to do with the story that we had. I've made it a mission to reconnect with some of them and some other friends in my life as a way to process through friendship itself and to remember Sam. It's also why I'm a Cubs fan. So a group of friends are going to pile into the Volkswagen and a secondary vehicle because not everybody wants to ride in it 2,000 miles. And we're going to go to Wrigley Field for a game in the bleachers. And the bleachers of Wrigley Field are it's the only ballpark where you get a general seat. You don't have a reserved seat. So you can just find your friends and sit with them, and they call Wrigley Field the friendly confines. So we're gonna live it up out in the bleachers together to remember our buddy. The story will become about friendship, how it happens, how it changes, how it sometimes ends, and how it can return to us after all. The bleachers will be an open invitation to whoever wants to check it out, have the conversation, or just show up. And so there's no restriction on who can decide they're my friend that day. So if you wanna come to Chicago, September 1st, I'll see you there. Along the way, I'm going to do some vignettes that dig deeper into specific stories about other friends that include connections like sports, music, career, faith, hobby, addiction, family, and more. So there are a lot of themes that I get to explore in the journey. This is the Volkswagen. It is actually Sam's car from when we were younger. It's the car his mother picked me up from school in that first day when he invited me over to their house. It's the car that we drove to Scrappy's right across the street to go to shows, to go to hardcore shows here in Tucson. It is the car, and the family still has it, and that's the one I'm going to drive. And Bob, his dad, as soon as this idea was hatched, what did he do? He tore the whole engine apart and rebuilt everything, and he's pretty sure it's going to make it. So the desired result, a meaningful trip for those involved. I'm going to write a travel memoir out of this experience. I'm hoping for some press that leads to a publishing deal. I'd like the book to get out there and be a professionally published book. And I want to be a part of the conversation around the friendship crisis through what I view as an easy Trojan horse, which is to say Volkswagens and the Chicago Cubs. These are things people like. If you don't like the Cubs, I'm sorry. They're the best team. If you wear a Cubs hat, you become friends with everyone. If you wear a Yankees hat, people hate you. So if you want to make more friends, buy a Cubs hat, and you'll be on the right track. But people love the Cubs and Volkswagens, and I want to talk about bigger, deeper things. But by talking about those two things, I think people will be interested in the discussion. The friendship crisis. If you Google this, friendship recession, friendship crisis, you're going to get a lot of stuff because friendship is in a free fall right now. So surveys show the number of close friends people have on average has decreased. Those who say they have 10 plus close friends was 33% in 1990, but it's decreased to 13% in 2021. I don't know how your 2021 was, but for some people, they have lost more friends since 2021. So I'm guessing those numbers have gotten worse. The number of American men without a close friend has jumped 5 times since 95. There used to be only 3% who would say that. Now it's up to 15%. Again, that was in 2021. So there's an issue around this concept of friendship that I think that people are longing for and wanting to figure out. And so I think a book like this is timely. I think people will be wanting to think about what it means to be a friend and have a friend and revisit the idea of friendship. I'm a big fan of an author named Andrew Root. He is a philosopher and theologian. He wrote a book called The Church in an Age of Secular Mysticisms, and there's a lot to that book. I will spare you the full overview. But one of the things he says is that the new spiritual source that people are looking to is the memoir. They're looking for personal stories where people find and discover something. That's people go to memoir far more than they go to church. Most memoirs, however, follow the impulse to find yourself. And unfortunately, that impulse is exactly what's driving us away from each other. It's exactly what's fragmenting us. And so he said, great memoirs lead people to a transcendent encounter through two surprising things. Number one, confession, and number two, surrender. When a person can tell their story and they can say, look, I have not lived up to this, and I need help, and I have been through something, and I need hope, people will resonate with that, and that's a good and very true story. And I hope to write such a story, and I think the elements that are already there in my story will lead in that exact direction. I've written stuff before. This isn't the first time. One of my favorite hits that 20 people have read ever is called What We Do with Jesus. It's about the Garden of Gethsemane, which is the little statue park down by the freeway. I call this a devotional for people who don't believe in God. And I really like it. It's about the artist Felix Lucero and his journey with building these statues and wrestling with the meaning of it all, and his death, actually. And there's some interesting stuff I learned as I studied about him. I wrote about being a bivocational pastor. I wrote a book with a friend of mine named Rod about how to hang out with people and talk, really. Limericks for our senseis, Justin, is that about right? Yeah, how to hang out with people and talk while eating. That's the concept, if you're still working on that. And then finally, the one in the middle is a travel memoir that I wrote after the death of my father, in which I bought a 1968 Ford truck from a farmer in Oregon and drove it back to Tucson, and I thought about people who are often missed in our society that kind of reminded me of my father and the value that they bring if we spend time to get to know them. So I have written before. In Infuse, we encourage people to infuse the hope that they have within them due to their faith into their idea. So I want to give you a couple ways that I plan to do that. In the book, from this 2,000 miles to Wrigley journey, I plan to craft a window through which the reader might see that there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother, and wonder what such friendship ultimately means. And what I mean by that is the longing for friendship and the deep dissatisfaction we have with the brokenness of friendship and the loss of friendship, I believe points to something more ultimate than any person could ever fulfill. And I want to hint at that, and I want to build curiosity about that. I am not writing a Christian book, just to be clear, but I am a Christian, and so is Sam, so that will be there. I want to write a book that's honest about and toward God. So Sam was a person who wrestled with faith. It wasn't easy for him. He walked away from it for some time, and there's some pretty hard stuff he processed, and I want to be honest about all of that. But there's also some rediscovery and hope found in the wreckage. And there's actually a pretty profound story I'm alluding to when I say that you'll just have to read the book to find out. To do this, I'm trying to raise $20,000. It's a lot of money. But I'm thrilled to say that I've got about half of that already through some fundraising on Patreon, but mostly through a grant I was able to get to help make this happen. So this is it's gonna get a couple of vehicles full of people there and back and staying in hotel rooms ideally. It's gonna feed us. It's gonna buy tickets to a Cubs game for everybody and all the incidental costs. And I'm always surprised at how much that stuff adds up. So I'm trying to raise money to do this without just digging deep in my own pocketbook. How can you help me with this? You can follow the story and support it. Infuse is not going to give me money. So just so you know, when they go back and judge, it's not going to happen. I don't want it to happen. You can follow me on Patreon. If you go to patreon.com and put in my name, Andy Littleton, you'll find the story. You'll find little blogs I'm doing about the process, and you can follow me and be a monthly supporter there. You can follow me on Facebook. The more Facebook and Instagram, the more followers I have, the better it looks for a publisher later. I'm woefully short on followers. You could request a letter from me with a writing sample. If you know somebody that might be interested in this, I have a formal letter with a portion of one of the chapters you could send along to them, and I'd be happy to share it. And also, and this is my number one thing for you all tonight, so this is how I end the time. I want you to think about a friend you've drifted away from and give it a second chance. And I want to tell you about how that happened with me recently. So in the early stages of writing this, I was reflecting on the friends I had just before I met Sam in early grade school. And one of them I thought of, his name is Jimmy. And he was my best buddy, but he had to leave the school right before Sam started coming to our school because he went through some pretty tragic stuff in his family, and he was just a kid. He had no control over that. Jimmy was an amazing baseball player. He actually was drafted by the Los Angeles Dodgers and started to climb that ladder until he got hurt, as many, and if not most, potential sports stars do. And it ended in a crash, and that was really hard for him, especially considering all that he'd been through. So he and I lost touch as well. And the other day, I was sitting at High Corbett Field up in the stands, and I'd once gotten his phone number. I tried reaching out, but he didn't answer. But I was sitting up in the stands, and I thought, I'm going to give him one more try. So I messaged Jimmy, and I said, hey, man, it's been a while. It's been 25 years since I've seen him. And I said, you want to go to a baseball game? And he texted me back, and he said, I'd love to. And we went to a baseball game just about 2 months ago, and honestly, we picked right up where we left off. We talked about all our memories of going to spring training games as kids, and I think we're going to hang out. It actually surprised me in many, many ways. So I want to encourage you to think about a friend that maybe you've drifted away from, or somebody you've wished was your friend, and take a shot and just invite them to do something. Take a risk, because rekindling friendship is very much worth it. So again, Andy Littleton, 2,000 miles to Wrigley. Thank you so much for hearing my pitch.